in June of 2014, 2 months after we had unveiled the statue of Norman Borlaug in the U.S. Capitol, I received an email from a member of a agricultural research institute asking if it might be possible for their institute to purchase a replica of the statue to place on the campus of their institute. And there had been similar interest and requests made by other institutes, schools, University of Minnesota, the International Wheat and Maize Research Facility in Mexico, to possibly purchase copies of the statue. And in every instance, we wrote back saying we were pleased to have that happen, and the artist would be pleased to make a replica statue so that it could stand on their campus. What was unexpected was this request came from the Agricultural Biotechnology Research Institute of Iran. And as it would be explained to me, Norman Borlaug was considered a hero in Iran as a leader in the use of biotechnology to enhance seeds, to address difficult situations. Iran, which had water issues and needed seeds that could grow with little irrigation, were incredible admirers of Norman Borlaug, had in fact given him a gold medal in 2000 in recognition of what he did for Iran and other countries in the Middle East in the 1960s with his initial new wheat seeds, that miracle wheat that he brought from Mexico, where he had developed it over several decades. And included with the email from the Iranian Biotechnology Research Institute was an invitation to me to come and give the keynote address in Karaj, outside Tehran, in August. Well, there was a lot to consider, given there was no existing diplomatic relations and only strained relations between the United States and Iran for several decades long, dating back to the taking over of the American embassy and holding our diplomatic staff hostage. And yet, in thinking about what would Norm do, and with wonderful insight and encouragement from a young woman on our staff named Catherine Swoboda, I accepted. And after a lot of difficulties in getting a visa, which I thought would never be forthcoming, but it was, my wife and I flew all night, arriving at about 1 a.m. She had to be covered in this hijab everywhere she went. And we were whisked off to down dark streets to kind of a government guest house. And in the morning, up early and en route to Karaj, where I would be giving this keynote address to about 400 Iranian scientists, with the Minister of Agriculture and a mullah representing the Grand Ayatollah sitting in the front row watching carefully and listening carefully. And other speeches, including by the minister, preceded mine, and they got polite applause. And then it was time for me to be introduced. And I got up and I began talking about Norman Borlaug and being from Iowa and what he had done and in Mexico and in India and Pakistan, even as those two countries were in conflict. And I said, Norman Borlaug believed in biotechnology, and your Iranian Institute, you believe in biotechnology. Wouldn't it be incredible if Americans and Iranians working together could fulfill Borlaug's most fondest dream, finding a way to take the genes from rice that keep it from ever getting rust disease, transplanting them into wheat and barley, and eradicating that terrible scourge of agriculture. And I said, and just imagine an Iranian scientist, American scientist walking in together into the Iowa State Capitol to receive the World Food Prize that Norman Borlaug created for working together, and people would be standing together and cheering together and living in peace together, peace through agriculture. And I painted this picture and I said, send your top scientists to Des Moines to take part in our Borlaug Dialogue Symposium. Let's start the process. And they identified him, and I got the visa for him. And I sent World Food Prize laureates back and forth to Iran over the next several years in an effort to build this connection, including one of the great pioneers of modern agricultural biotechnology, Mark van Montague from Belgium, and Per Pinstrup Andersen from Denmark. But back to that speech, as I'm addressing the 400 scientists, Minister of Agriculture, the Grand Ayatollah, as I concluded painting this picture of coming together, standing together, cheering together, and I concluded and I stepped back from the podium wondering, what's going to happen? Here I am, the only senior former American State Department official ever invited to Iran, and led by the minister and the mullah. They jumped to their feet and gave me this standing ovation. 400 Iranians standing and cheering and clapping, on and on. And as I left the stage, the mullah representing the Grand Ayatollah ran to me and grabbing my hands in both of his and shaking this and saying things in Farsi that I didn't understand, but thanking me for this message of what's possible. I have no illusions about Iran. They're these terrible, terrible people who are part of the secret guard and force that imposes the strict rules on the population of Iran. But in going around, I could see that there is a huge segment of Iran that wants to have a relationship with the outside world, that wants to be part of development and exchanges. And I thought, just as we've had peace through agriculture with the Soviet Union, with Japan, with China, with Russia, that it could be possible through agricultural cooperation, working together to build some segment into U.S.-Iranian relations that could be taking us on the road to peace and away from conflict. I don't know where that relationship will end up. Didn't get terribly far, but it certainly seems worthwhile to have a moment like we had with Daniel Hillel, the Israeli irrigation specialist, nominated by 3 Muslims from Muslim and Arab countries. I hope there could be a nomination someday of an Iranian scientist, American scientist, working together, growing not only better crops, but growing peace.